Hey, are you struggling to finish your work in progress? So, I want to walk you through a ton of different ways that you can finally make it to the end. Hey, welcome to Carly Stevens Books. My name is Carly Stevens, and I have a pretty involved video for you today, but don't click away because I know that writers work in a lot of different ways and a lot of different styles. And so, what does it mean to reach the end, be able to type those words? So, maybe you started a novel back in November with NaNoWriMo, and now you're kind of stuck and you're making your way toward the end. That's awesome. Keep going. That is what this video is all about. I'm going to give you just a ton of tools, and you can sift through them and see what works for you. So I'm going to organize this into the major categories of reasons why people don't finish, or excuses that people have for not finishing a book. So first is pretty predictably time. So what are some ways that you can overcome a deficit of time? Now, I've done another video already on this channel about what to do if you only have a very short amount of time, but I'm going to focus on just working on that draft. That first draft. So first thing you can do is writing sprints. Just set a timer. You can even do this while food is cooking or something else is going on. Just 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then write as much as you can. Even if it's not very much, it's still going to be more than you otherwise would have down on paper. So next is to identify something that you can cut out. Life is all about priorities, and if you can cut out something like one show a night, maybe you watch 2 or 3 in the evenings, you can take out one and then set aside that time for writing. That will also move you forward. Next is dictation. This is not something that I've used myself, but I know that there's really great dictation software out there for saving time, helping you to multitask, and it is good for your joints and such as well, just the health of the writer if you're writing a lot. So Dragon, I think, is the most recommended dictation software, so that is also a possibility. Last note on time is that it's true that life is all about priorities and what you're prioritizing. And if you need to step back and not spend time writing, that's okay too. Sometimes there are just more important things going on in your life for a period of time. And if that's the case, don't beat yourself up for not writing. You'll get back to it. Even if it's a couple days or weeks or even months. Just deal with whatever needs to be dealt with. Get that therapy, help out your family member, navigate parenthood, or whatever it is that you need to actually focus on for that period of time. Just knowing that you will eventually return to this work in progress. These tips that I'm giving are, yes, to help you reach the finish line faster in most cases, but it's to reach the finish line at all. So if you need to pause, then pause, and don't feel bad about doing that. Another reason that some people don't finish their work is motivation. They lack the motivation. They sit down and they're kind of like, meh, I just don't know. This is one that is probably my most common issue as I'm writing books. I have pushed through that. I do have several books out. If you have been around the channel, then you know. But here are some ways to kind of get over that hump. So what helps me with motivation is sometimes to just skip ahead to the juicy stuff. I will just go to the fight scene or the love scene or the epilogue. It's just willy-nilly. If I have no motivation, zero, to write whatever is chronologically next, but I know that there's something good coming in 2 chapters or something, then I will just sometimes skip ahead and then return to the scenes that I am not as motivated to write later on. So that is a great way to continue going. Another beautiful way to overcome a lack of motivation in terms of whatever comes next in your story is to use brackets. Brackets just that say this scene is coming up next. In Into the Unreal, which is the second book of the Tanyuan Academy series, there was a crucial scene in the first third of the book that I just kept putting off and kept putting off. And for a long time, those 2 chapters or so were just brackets that said, Firion does this, and it's amazing, or whatever. And then during parent-teacher conferences one year, when nobody was coming in and all my grading was somehow done, I just powered through those final chapters, and there you go. The draft was finished. Next is, if you're lacking in motivation, to use accountability. This was also helpful for me. I started telling people that I was writing a book and approximately when I planned to be done. And then once I got a little bit farther into the process, I was able to say, yes, my book is coming out on this day. Or, that might look different for you, of course. But so tell your family, tell a friend. If you have a writing platform on Instagram or TikTok or what have you, then start telling your followers what the work in progress is about and when they can expect to see it. And if you're a certain personality, that's going to light a fire under you to continue on. Another, if you are more self-motivated than externally motivated, is to set up a reward for yourself for finishing, or rewards along the way. So maybe you have an idea of how long it's going to be, then say, okay, I've gotten 80% through my expected word count. Fabulous. Or every time you write 5 chapters, you get some big reward. After that, you can take a day off, or you can buy yourself, I don't know, a super nice coffee, or just something that's going to be attainable and keep you striving after whatever that thing is. Another tip for lacking motivation is this. So the Tanyuan Academy series, I have all my books here just in case I needed them, is this set of 3 books, and they're pretty huge. And I wrote the majority of them in the summertime when I didn't have my full-time teaching job to worry about. The way that I managed to continue going with that was by making myself write very often. And when I wasn't feeling motivated, one of the last-ditch effort things that I would do that worked almost every time was to switch locations. Maybe I hit the afternoon slump, which tends to hit me really hard. After lunch, I'm just useless. And I'm like, I don't want to do anything. I don't feel like writing. I don't know. When I was in that kind of mood, then I would say, okay, Stevens, let's get out of the house. And so I would hop in my car and I would go to a new coffee shop or brewery that I had never been to before, ideally. I would get myself something and then I would sit there. And just having bought something kind of put some stakes into your writing. Of course, if you go to a brewery, that you also have to stay for a while. It just forces you to have your butt in the seat, and you are here to write. You have your computer, and that is really the only thing you can do there. You can't dilly-dally with chores or homework or anything else as easily. So that would usually do the trick. I could knock out a chapter or something that way. Another for motivation, again, for certain personalities, not everything's going to work for everybody, but establish a routine or typical time that you write. So I know that there are people who wake up early and they write from 5 to 5:30 or something. That is not for everyone. But perhaps there's a time, maybe it's after the kids have gone to bed. I've heard other people do that. There's a time in the evening where it's 8 to 9 or something, and that is their writing time. They sit and they write during that time. For whatever reason, I'm a pretty routine driven person and that has not worked well for me, but I know there are plenty of people for whom it has, so take that for what it is. And then last in the motivation category is if you've written anything before that has gotten good feedback. So if you are a published author already, congratulations. Maybe you can go to some of those good reviews on Amazon, for example. If you're not, and I know that that's probably the majority of people watching this video, no shame whatsoever, but maybe you've shown your stories to a teacher, or maybe you've shown them to your family, and you've gotten some really good responses, or friends, they've sent you emails like, oh gosh, I love these characters. Go back to those. I do this. I keep all of the beta reader feedback from my books, and so if people write, oh gosh, forgive any typos because I'm sobbing, I read it over and over and over again because it reminds me, okay, all right, this is so much of why I'm doing this. I can actually write. Maybe these stories are not going to be for everyone. Maybe they're not going to be perfect, but it just gives me more motivation, which is what you're looking for. Okay, maybe your problem is not time, maybe it's not motivation, maybe it's ideas. You aren't quite sure what to do or where to go, but you're ready. So one of the best ways that I've found to get ideas is to unplug. I am so often on my phone, on my computer, I'm watching TV, I'm listening to podcasts. I always have stuff coming in. But anytime I unplug, when I'm taking a walk or driving without music or even in the shower, I'll get all of these ideas just rising to the surface that had been kind of stuffed down by all of the media. So long walks are the writer's best friend. I've heard so many stories of people who go on long walks. And for me, that was a way to just allow all of these things to come to me. So it was more like discovering the story rather than making it up. And that's the way I prefer personally for my writing. I like things to feel inevitable, like, oh gosh, of course that's how it is, and kind of learning about the backstories of characters and things like that. And a lot of that came through these long walks where I would get an idea, I would put it quickly in the notes in my phone, and then I would have all this fodder to use. Maybe that isn't something that you can or want to do as much. That's fine. Something you can do with just a couple minutes is to make some disconnected notes, like lists and things like that. I'm a list person. I love a list. I make lists nearly every day of things that I want to accomplish or elements of my story. So that can be a great way to get moving in your story and gain some ideas without the pressure of having a completely blank page in front of you and now you have to write the next scene. So maybe you just want to list what you want to happen, and then you can pick and choose. Or you can make notes on the culture or the characters, or you can just basically, I'm saying, brain dump all of these things in your head, and maybe one idea will lead to another, and then you'll have enough to move forward and write. Sometimes I feel like I'm just completely dried out of ideas. I'm like a sponge that needs to, run under the water again. So you might need to pause, not write for the day, and instead read a really good book. This can be a comfort read or ideally something that is new, so you have some new ideas to inspire you to move forward in your own story. Just hearing the ideas of others can sometimes start sparking your own ideas as well. Another one, and this is not going to resonate with everybody, and that's perfectly fine, is that sometimes you need to stop and either make an outline or revise your outline. I have I have a complicated relationship with outlines. I don't do super well with them, but I need something. So I'm like on the spectrum of plotters and pantsers. I hover around the middle. Sometimes I'll go more over here, sometimes I'll go more over here. I've become more of a plotter, but not all the time. Sometimes I need to just break free. But at some point, at least when I'm getting stuck or my ideas just aren't flowing, sometimes I need to pause and see, okay, of the stuff that I have in my story so far, how does it fit into a structure? Like, what actually makes sense to come next? What is on the horizon if I'm subscribing to an outline structure? So a lot of my stuff falls into a 3-act structure, at least loosely. There's this beginning, there's this middle, and there's an end. There's more to it than that, of course. But if you can kind of identify where you are, or perhaps where you should be in an outline, then that again can help you come up with, oh, okay, so what's next is this dark night of the soul. I wonder what, how I could make that happen, and again, spark some new ideas. And then I have a final category. Maybe it's none of those things. Maybe it's just pure writer's block. So I have kind of a catch-all category here of my final tips. If you're thinking, no, it's not time, it's not ideas, it's not motivation, it's just, I don't even know. Then what if you turned your story in a completely different direction? There's no law against it. You can just throw your outline out the window, so going in the opposite direction of my last advice, and see what happens then. Maybe if you do that, then all of a sudden you will see the way more clearly. You'll feel more motivated. I guess maybe it should have fallen into the motivation category, this advice, but sometimes you just need to completely mix things up. Throw a wrench in it. See what if, and go absolutely nuts with that. So that's a possibility. Something else that can be helpful and has been helpful for me in the past is to get to know my characters better, to really want to spend time with them and know them, know what they would do, know what they would say, and like them. So if your story is feeling a little bit dry and you feel like something's not quite right, then I would encourage you to write a disconnected scene or story with your character that you're kind of feeling this way about. Just follow them around and see what happens. Put them in a funny or a scary scenario and see how they come out the other side. And you might come up with just these things that make them feel more like people. Again, that you want to spend time with, and that your readers want to spend time with once you're done, but you have to finish first. And then a couple of last notes here. Let go of perfection. Your writing is not going to be perfection itself. It could be really good. You could be somebody who writes a really clean first draft. And if that's the case, awesome. I know I've written books with pretty darn clean first drafts. I don't need to do any major overhauls, even from first draft to publication. And then I've had first drafts that have just been a complete mess. And they needed so much work. But both projects got done. And at this point, that's the important thing. Reaching that milestone that will allow you to see, all right, this is doable. I can write a book. So if you can, then try to let go of that idea that everything is going to be absolutely perfect. It's all right to spend time and mull over your ideas before getting them down on paper. You don't need to word vomit. That's not what I'm saying. It works for some people. But just get to a point where you're okay with a little imperfection. If it helps, think about your favorite book right now. It is not perfect. it's not perfect. Maybe it has a chapter that kind of is not quite right, or there's a character that says one line, it rubs you the wrong way, or I don't know. I think the first chapter in Six of Crows could have been left out and the story wouldn't have suffered at all. And I love Six of Crows. Just remind yourself that even people who write these things that everyone just adores, or you adore at least, those aren't perfect. But they got it done and they got it to you and you enjoyed it that much. And then let go of yourself, let go of beating yourself up for not having finished the project already. That's fine. I was a writer when I was in school, but then I didn't write for years and years and years, and I only picked it up again when I was about 30, and I enjoyed the process. I didn't think, oh, my last years in my 20s, I thought, well, how awesome that I get to do this now. So try to come at it with more of that attitude, and it's fine. You've been working on this thing for years and years. Yeah. Furion Rising, I started writing when I was 17, and it didn't come out until I was 32. But I got it done eventually. And now I'm on a roll. I'm coming out with various books. It's been a little over one a year on average. So, and then this one is going to be controversial. Maybe you should give up the project that you're working on and switch projects entirely to something else. If you have been working on something for a long time, like I was working on this, maybe you're just a different person. Maybe you have something else to say now, and you don't connect to the story the way you did once upon a time. Sometimes that's just the way it is. It's okay to shelve a project in favor of something new. Give yourself some grace. I know I've had all kinds of experiences in my limited writing life, and sometimes I'm just not motivated at all to do one project. Maybe there are parts of it that I love, but it's just not speaking to me right now. And I'm so motivated to do this other project over here that I can write it really, really fast and reach the end of that project and kind of clear my head to go back to this more complicated, dark world over here. If that's the case for you, no shame. Shelve that work that you've been working on forever. It's okay, and move on to something else. What you want to hopefully avoid is doing that every time. What I'm not saying is that, well, if you're super motivated, nothing's going to be hard. There are always going to be those sections, those scenes that are a little bit of a slog, and it's okay because the payoff is great. You get to reach the end. You get to hand somebody this experience that will really resonate with someone. If it resonates with you, if you enjoyed it, if you're having fun, if you are moved by it, whatever it is that you want to leave the person with, then there's somebody out there that's going to feel that way about it too. So I hope that this was encouraging for you. Something in this must have spoken to you, fingers crossed. So good luck. You can finish your book. I didn't for the longest time, and now I have books to show for it. I have these, and I couldn't be prouder. They're not perfect, but they're done, and people are really enjoying them. So, like this video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe for more writing, publishing, indie author life stuff on this channel. So until next time.